It's already got to the afternoon. Busy morning. I'm going to share about that in a moment. My video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. And believe you me, we can be addicted to anything in this life. My substance, alcohol, my behaviour, equally addictive. Work, relationships, collecting, materialism, trying to look right, trying to get the next job, worried about what other people thought of me, not really understanding much about how to make life possible and experience happiness in the moment of now. And 35 years of drinking, 35 years of trying to be whatever I thought I ought to be, rather than trying to find out what it's like to be me. And there is a big difference in how we conduct ourselves in life. So for me, a lot of the time in my formative years, relying on things outside myself to fix me. So if it wasn't alcohol, like I say, it could have been work, relationships. My happiness was contingent on external factors. And often we're all driven that way, to the point of distraction. And I didn't know how to switch off. So I kept on trying to be perfect. And the result was, I was never perfect. I was never satisfied. And I was always worried that you would find me out. So these days, I don't mind if you do find me out, because it means I'm going to learn something. And recovery is quite a difficult business. Once we've got to the place of addiction, it's very hard to stop doing something which used to help us. And it could have been many years of helping us fix the way we felt. So not fixing these days and living life as it is means I have to find a place of acceptance of how I am today. And I'm just back from the doctor's, and the doctor says, yeah, not too bad, could do better. And I know that too. I can do better. But, you know, on the main indicators, there is one area where I need some improvement. But given my circumstances, with a fractured foot and other things going on, it's hardly surprising that I'm nowhere near perfect. Thank goodness. So there's more to do. And that's the great gift of recovery. We get more busy, more interested in life, if life affords interest. And one of my other conditions, clinical depression, can overwhelm me and send me into a dark place again. So I'm always watchful for what is going on. So I follow professional medical advice on matters to do with professional and medical situations. And when it comes to my emotional and spiritual well-being, I have friends in fellowship who help me. And that fellowship is AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's quite good, really. I saw 3 people on my way to the doctors who I know, just ambling along. Got 2 smiles and 1 turned away. And the one who turned away was conscious that my association via fellowship might be a hindrance to them because they were with somebody. So I don't mind, and that's fine. Life goes on. So how does fellowship help me on a daily basis to keep with a program, 1 day long, 24 hours a day, keeping sober, so that life can work again, and I can find out what my feelings are, and I can be in the moment of now, this realistic moment where I work out what I can do and cannot do. Well, there is a preamble shared at every meeting of AA I go to, and it reads as a statement of intent about what AA can do. So here we go. Here is the statement of intent, and then I share a bit of literature and what's been going on. AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So that's my primary purpose, and it's never for money. We give it away to keep it. So in a philanthropic sort of way, but an equal sort of way, equality being key in recovery. No one's bigger, smarter or better than anybody else. We all have something to share, and that's the wisdom of how we got to sobriety. and then how we keep sober. So mine is just one message of millions. So if you don't hear what you feel is helpful, there are always other people in fellowship and in meetings you can share with. And I share that I'm part of the fellowship of AA simply because I am. I don't represent it, never can, never will, full of unique, authentic people, like me, just learning how to live for today and to be in the world. So, how is my emotional and spiritual balance today? Well, it's pretty good. I had a bit of a kick in the teeth earlier, although I didn't actually. Somebody put the phone down on me, and it was because I was suggesting that whilst they were resenting the world, the reason why they were able to keep on resenting the world was simply because they were resentful about their own personal situation, not enough self-esteem, and a bit too much ego. So ego tends to tell us that we should be doing better, that people ought to be taking more account of us, paying us more, giving us more attention. And the answer is, we get what we are given based on what they can give. And if we complain and resent, it's because we let it keep on happening without saying anything. And then we resent because they say, no, we can't change the way we feel, and we can't give you any more money. So if we stick with the situation and remain resentful, we are resentful at ourselves more than anything, because people don't value us enough. So the answer is, move on. Now that sounds like an easy thing to say. It's not. It's the hardest thing in the world, and it's the thing I didn't do which caused me to have a nervous breakdown. So my life changed completely because I did move on in the end, and it was a tough thing to do. So life is always difficult, but that's just the way it is. So daily reading for today. In this book called Daily Reflections, 1 page a day always helps me, and the month of March is always about letting go and letting good. So if we let go of resentments and let good happen, make good choices, we have a starting point. And it says here for March 26th that the teaching is never over. And it talks about God too. So it doesn't have to be God, it can be good conscience or a higher power of your understanding, but it's often the wisdom learned from other people. So as you understand it. So here it says, abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. So it's important to know it's about your understanding of God, and for me God is truth, the absolute truth, not my version. God is love, and God works through people. So truth, love and wisdom from others is what keeps me spiritually connected to the moment of now. It goes on to say, these words put a lump in my throat each time I read them. In the beginning it was because I felt, oh no, the teaching is over, now I'm on my own. It will never be this new again. Today I feel a deep affection for our AA pioneers when I read this passage, realizing that it sums up all of what I believe in and strive for, and that with God's blessing the teaching is never over. I am never on my own, and every day is brand new. And what more could we ask for? To be included, part of and loved, and be able to love back. That's the essential of life. So when we understand what we can and cannot do on a daily basis, and I need reminding constantly sometimes, through the Serenity Prayer, life starts to work for me, just for today. And that Serenity Prayer reads as this, or sounds like this. God, all in good conscience, grant me the serenity to understand, to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference is always just for today. My video is all about recovery from either addiction to or addiction to both, addiction to substance or behaviour. So my substance of addiction, alcohol, now in recovery, my behaviour, alcoholic, workaholic,
perfectionist, any sort of ist you can think of, any sort of ism. And I guess the ism I've got now is living one day at a time, and the reasons why I do these videos is to share experience, strength and hope, and I guess that's as far as it goes. I'm not here really to influence anybody anyway to anything. I just share how my life works on a daily basis, and with the help of the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't speak for AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, never will, never can. I just speak for me and what is working today. So, last couple of days, been up and down, and a funeral on Tuesday, and yesterday another consultation at the hospital about type 1 diabetes and clinical depression. So some changes there too, hopefully for the good, to make life a little bit easier, improve it. But what's underlying all of this is being in recovery one day at a time. And here on YouTube I refer to some of the books in AA, and also to the AA preamble, which is shared at the beginning of every meeting. So I make no apology for sharing it again. It's a daily occurrence for me, going to a meeting, and sometimes twice a day, just in case I need some experience, strength and hope and wisdom to keep going just one more day. So the AA preamble, which is shared at every meeting, goes like this. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And yes, that's exactly what I try and do, sharing a bit of experience, strength and hope. So yeah, my life has been difficult over the last few weeks, and I don't know whether I've made it more difficult or less difficult. Trying to meet things head on as best I can, with open, honest, willing eyes, and an attitude of inquiry and change. That's changing me. I'm not here to change anybody else. And the first step of the AA program, the action steps, 12 action steps, suggests I'm powerless over people, places and things, and if I were to drink again, life would be unmanageable. And I actually wholeheartedly agree with that. I'm not here to manage or control people, places or things. I'm here to enable better choice on a daily basis for me. Sometimes I have to look ahead for things to do with ongoing situations and make sure I make plans, but generally, if I look at what the fellowship has done for me, which is to help me understand my spiritual well-being, my emotional well-being and my physical well-being, then it's a daily occurrence. It's just for today. And I refer to books like this one, As Bill Sees It, which can give a page a day wisdom, or more if you choose, and this one, Daily Reflections, which is dated for each day of the year. And in the Daily Reflections, for each month it covers one of the steps, the action steps for individuals, 12 action steps, all about attitude change, behavioural change. Not about anybody else's attitude, and not about anybody else's behaviour, just how we live as best we can in the day. And as I've always said, the word God appears quite often in the text and understanding of how the 12-step program works. And for everyone there is their own definition of God as they understand God, whether it's atheist, agnostic or believer, and it's a personal choice how it is understood and defined for them or me. So mine is God is love, God is truth, and God works through people, as Gandhi suggested as well. So when it says here, made a decision to turn our will over to the lives and our lives over to the care of God as we understood it, it's the caveat for me is on truth, love and honesty, I guess. That's it, really. That's my understanding. And from that we get wisdom from ourselves and from other people, often from other people, but also from our life experience. So just have to pause for one moment. Someone at my door. It was the postman. Anyway, carrying on, and yes, where do we learn? We learn from life experience, and the 12-step action program of AA requires life experience to make them real and to be put into action in reality. So the whole thing of AA really is not a theoretical exercise in any shape or form. It's simply a way of living, using open, honest, willing outlooks and approaches to change our attitude and behaviour as life changes on a day-to-day basis. So we stop being stuck in old behaviour, hopefully, and we're ever changing, and we just make progress. And I guess that's really what it says in our As Bill Sees It for today's reading, this one. And I'm just doing these linearly and not in any particular order to support anything. So it says here, conviction and compromise on page 59. One qualification for a useful life is give and take, the ability to compromise cheerfully. Compromise comes hard to us all or nothing drunks. Nevertheless, we must never lose sight of the fact that progress is nearly always characterized by a series of improving compromises. Of course, we cannot always compromise. There are circumstances in which it is necessary to stick flat-footed to one's convictions until the issue is resolved. Deciding when to compromise and when not to compromise always calls for the most careful discrimination. And that's so true, because if we get stuck in insane misunderstandings about ourselves or other people, or we're wishing the world to be a certain way without putting any action in, then we're in dire problems of sliding backwards, becoming frustrated and angry and resentful. And the difficulty is, for people who are in recovery, resentment is the number one offender for relapse. Anger and depression, I suspect, follow very, very hard on those heels. So what helps me most is inclusion in family, society, community, not in any particular order. It changes from day to day. But we are part of a civilized, I guess, species. One hopes so anyway. But we're all in different places, and the problem is, if we are determined to be right, we can be very unhappy. Or if we are just determined to find the right path, open, honest and willing, and to make compromises, I guess we have a better chance. Yeah, we do. On a daily basis, we fit in rather than stand out. And, you know, for me these days, I'm more interested in being a part of rather than in front of. And that was different in my career days, if you like, in industry. But going on to daily reflections, this one, and I think I've got time for it. For March 26, it says, the teaching is never over. And bear in mind, it's the God of your understanding when I read these things, be you agnostic, atheist or believer. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of the past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. So for me, it's more about good conscience and that connection to truth, love and living in the day. So those words put a lump in my throat each time I read them. In the beginning it was because I felt, oh no, the teaching is over. Now I'm on my own. It will never be this new again. Today I feel a deep affection for our AA pioneers when I read this passage, realizing that it sums up all of what I believe in and strive for, and that, with God's blessing, the teaching is never over. I'm never on my own, and every day is brand new. And really, for me, that is so critical. You know, every day is brand new. It's a new 24 hours. It means I don't forget the past. I learn the wisdom from it and experience from it the ways to change today, probably. So attitude and behaviour on a daily basis. It's forever changing if we are willing, open and honest, because the world doesn't stand still. And what helps me most often when things are going awry, I say the serenity prayer, which is acceptance. So God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, and simply on a daily basis.
DonInLondon, good evening. Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And that's the AA preamble, which is said at the beginning of every meeting of AA I ever go to. And whilst I do not speak for AA, I speak for myself. I am an absolute fan of the program because it helps me make my life work one day at a time. And tonight, my Monday meeting is a Step and Tradition meeting, and it's held in the Boltons, and we were talking about Tradition 2 tonight. And Tradition 2, it says, for our group purpose there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. And so important for anybody who comes into AA is to know that nobody tells us what to do. That's in Tradition 1. And then we need to argue our case and work it out together to work out how our groups work. And that's the group conscience itself is I suppose, God speaking through people. And for me, God is truth. And often in group consciences, many express their desire never to go to one again because they can be quite procedural and everybody has their say, and then we have to vote on things and make sure that we do things which all the group are accepting of, and it takes time. And what was interesting tonight, the person who came along to share on Tradition 2 was late, and what had happened was they thought they knew where they were going, and they'd gone to an AA meeting just down the road and helped set up the chairs and said, where are all the people? It's almost 7 o'clock and I'm about to speak then. And they said, hang on a minute, speak about what? And he said, Tradition 2. And actually they said, well, we don't do that here. And they were in the wrong meeting. Anyway, not too far away and only a few minutes late they arrived, and they did a very good share on what it's like to come into recovery, find you're in a fellowship where you speak your truth eventually. And most of us when we come in are not quite sure what the truth is, because if we share the truth completely, will anybody like us or care for us or wonder about us or allow us to be a part of the meeting? And we have to spend some time trying to find our honesty. And the program is based on open, honest and willing. Those are some of the principles. And this thing about having a group conscience to decide how a group behaves and what it allows and does not allow, how it fits in with the fellowship and everything to do with recovery is paramount. And a lot of people don't take much notice of it because they're just simple traditions. But they would be very aware that if AA didn't have traditions, the meetings wouldn't happen, that the fellowship would fall and disintegrate into disarray as more and more people try to exert their power and influence over it. What do we get? We get chaos and anarchy. But because people understand that it's a process of learning how to work together to make sure everybody gets a good chance at recovery, then everything seems to work okay. It's slow, procedural, and often when we are trying to change the rules, we find that we don't want to change the rules and everything's working as best it can. It's just not working our way all the time as we feel it ought. So we learn a lot, and really what I expressed tonight is in the past when I was trying to live my life as an independent person, and people I came up against with a different opinion I could ignore and live my life as I chose and at my peril. But within AA we have to rub along together, and what I've discovered is I can have arguments with friends and fellows in the fellowship, and eventually we might fall out for a while, but eventually, because we all keep coming back to the same meetings in the same places, we find a place of tolerance and love where we accept that another person has a different point of view, and it's perfectly okay with everyone. Well, most of the time. Anyway, coming on to the readings for tomorrow, and daily reflection, written by AA people for AA people, and authorised by AA. So tomorrow will be the 26th. Here we go. No ordinary success story. AA is no success story in the ordinary sense of the word. It is a story of suffering, transmuted under grace into spiritual progress, and as we call it, a spiritual program based on truth. That came from As Bill Sees It, page 35. Upon entering AA, I listened to others talk about the reality of their drinking, loneliness, terror and pain. As I listened further, I soon heard a description of a very different kind, the reality of sobriety. It is a reality of freedom and happiness, of purpose and direction, and of serenity and peace with God, ourselves and others. By attending meetings, I am reintroduced to that reality over and over. I see in the eyes and hear it in the voices of those around me. By working the program, I find the direction and strength with which to make it mine. The joy of AA is that this new reality is available to me. That's pretty much what I just said. And we live and learn, and the great news is, because we have a sense of community, and we want the fellowship to remain strong, and a force for good. I don't know that it's a force, but it's there for the good of those who need recovery. We work together, and we find harmony where there is disharmony, and certainly we find some harmony in ourselves and peace of mind by just being sober one day at a time. And that gives us our choices back as we live our way through life. So, how nice. And it was a gentle meeting tonight, and it wasn't packed out, and it wasn't people shouting to make their point and have their say. It was just big enough for everybody who wished to speak. Coming on to As Bill Sees It. I quite like this book, and I know that a lot of the references to God may puzzle some, with a chap like me who has only come to understand that God is truth. But, there are 6.5 billion people on the planet, and everybody's definition of God is their own, and is truth, and I don't need to trample on anybody's toes. And I've said that before as well. Anyway, 26th, page 84, benefits of responsibility. Happily, AA's per capita expenses are very low. For us to fail to meet them would be to evade a responsibility beneficial for us. Most alcoholics have said they had no troubles that money would not cure. We are a group that, when drinking, all held out a hand for funds, so when we commenced to pay our own service bills, this is a healthy change. Because of my drinking, my friend Henry had lost a high salaried job. There remained a fine house with a budget of 3 times his reduced earnings. He could have rented the house for enough to carry it out, but no. Henry said he knew that God wanted him to live there, and he would see that costs were paid. So Henry went on running up the bills and glowing with faith. Not surprisingly, his creditors finally took over the place. Henry can laugh about it now, having learned that God more than often helps those who are willing to help themselves. And that's very true as well. We have to live within the budgets we have, and I found that with my optician today. I can get some prescription glasses which I can live with. They're not fancy, and they will do the job, but the very focals they want me to have I cannot afford, and I'm going to have to say, having given it due consideration, it's a non-starter. And finally, just coming on to 24 hours a day, written by an AA but not authorised by AA, 26th of Feb. When we came into AA, we came to believe in a power greater than ourselves. We came to believe that divine principle in the universe which we call God, and to whom we can turn for help. Each morning we have a quiet time. We ask God for the power to stay sober for the next 24 hours. At each night we thank Him for helping us to keep sober that day. Do I believe that each man or woman I see in AA is a demonstration of the power of God to change a human being from being a drunkard to a sober person? And as God is truth, I feel I do. And it's not done passively. We have to work hard at recovery, as if our life depends on it. And absolutely, I find it does on a 24-hour basis. So more tomorrow.